Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Beyond the Barclay with me, Jez Davies. I am, of course, joined with the sexiest man in Dereham, Mr. Morgan Hewitt.
Oh,
How are you, Morgan?
I thought you were going to say someone else.
Well, there's no one else in the room, is there? So it's got to be you.
True. Yeah, I'm good. Jez. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Yeah, really good. Really looking forward to the match this weekend with Bristol City. So, yeah, it's we need a win, don't we? We need a win.
We need something.
Yeah.
Probably a fan zone, maybe.
Or a competent sporting director. On that note, I'm absolutely delighted to be able to introduce one of our former guests, Mr. Nick Dye, who is currently in the United States of America, baby. Nick, if you'd just like to... pardon?
Don't do that again.
No, I won't. I'll never do it again.
Ever
Nick,
again.
Welcome back to the show. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, that was a convincing accent, Jez. I'm sold. But yeah, howdy partners, I guess. And yeah, I'm good.
Better than your American accent, given you've lived in the country for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Although you might hear a few twangs through this, so my apologies.
No, it's absolutely fine. So for some of the newer listeners, Nick, if you'd just like to reintroduce yourself and just talk to us, perhaps let's focus a little bit on your favourite NCFC moments then. So very briefly.
Yeah, so I grew up in Puller Market in South Norfolk. Norwich fan from a very young age, even though my dad was a Liverpool fan. Started to go to games midweek. That was kind of my entry into it. Became a season ticket holder. Very fortunate to become a season ticket holder. 12 years old, and kind of continued that through and until I left. And I worked for the club too in the football in the community scheme as well. But favourite moment is which I don't think will ever be beat, was my 3-year-old, jet lagged, forced him to get to the football on Boxing Day against Nottingham Forest. Had him on my shoulders. He fell asleep on my shoulders. woke up about 20 minutes into the match, eyes wide open, and then saw us go 3-0 down. And I think he was paying any attention to the game whatsoever. And then obviously subsequently saw us get back to 3-3, and me chucking him up in the air and him crying because he was completely petrified of me throwing him in the air and everyone around him screaming. So yeah, that will live long with my memory.
That was a great introduction to the roller coaster ride of Sporting Norwich City. I was at that game actually, so what a turnaround. But yeah, what a great game to be inaugurated in. So fair play.
I think I'd mentioned it actually, Nick, when you came on before, but I didn't go to the game because our in-laws came round for Boxing Day, my in-laws, and obviously I was quite upset when we were 3-0 down, and when we turned it around in injury time, it was actually the Tim Closer dummy that did it for me for the Ono Hernandez third goal, I think it was, and I let's just say I got very excited, and I think my father-in-law was quite shocked. So much so that I actually pulled the TV out of its socket and lost the stream. So, it was brilliant. It was, I think that epitomised the season, really, didn't it? The sort of the never give up, never say die attitude of that squad.
Oh yeah, it definitely did. And how Ono Hernandez read that Tim Closer was going to throw a dummy there is something else as well. But what a performance by him on that day.
Definitely. So perhaps if we move on to our next question, Morgan.
Sure. So thanks for coming on again, Nick. Obviously, the last time you were on this podcast, I wasn't really part of it. I actually listened to your episode, so it was I remember you telling me saying about that Nottingham Forest story, and it's a great anecdote. So without further ado, you find yourself in an interesting position at San Francisco City FC, sporting director. Congratulations. Can you tell us about your journey to get to where you are now?
Yeah. So from leaving Norwich, I moved to New Jersey. Part of that was just wanting to travel and move around and try and take my career in the coaching ladder. So working with an academy in New Jersey, I then got the opportunity to move to the Bay Area, where I took on the role of a program coordinator for a club. And I became a director of coaching, or a technical director at a youth academy. And then started a business out here, helping grow the standards of coaching. So working with coaches, trying to create full-time jobs for coaches. And that led me through all my coaching licenses, led me to work in the professional game as a coach out here with Bay Cities FC in the third tier of the game in the US. And then just, looking for more education and more opportunities, decided to get in touch with the Association of Sporting Directors, which are based in England. I'm doing their alt MBA program right now. So that got me thinking about the sporting director role, and then started to find opportunities there, and started to then get in touch with clubs around me, get in touch with San Francisco City FC. So I've been in touch with them for a little bit, started to help them out, and then took the role of the sporting director for them.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Incredible. Did you, I know you said you sort of mentioned about moving to New Jersey just to sort of travel around. Was it also owing to, I guess, at that time, would it have been quite competitive in the UK to try and get into a role that you moved into in New Jersey? Was it something that you were kind of actively aware of?
Yeah, there was definitely that impetulance of youth a little bit. I mean, I just got my UEFA B license. I was 21, and obviously felt like I knew how to coach everyone under the sun, and I was perfect. So there was that impetulance of youth and wanting to get opportunities, but which probably would have taken time in the UK. But there was also just the bug to get out and travel. I remember speaking to my pal who was just landed a job at a pub. And I was like, hey, do you want to just go travel? And he was like, no, I just landed this job at the pub. And I was like, okay, I've got to kind of take this upon myself at this point, and started to look at opportunities at coaching. And then found this academy in New Jersey, and then interviewed with them, went out and visited, and then took a role. So yeah, that was that led me into what became the journey.
Right.
Amazing. Talk to us a little bit about San Francisco City then. So what level do they currently play at, and what is the aspiration?
Yeah, it's a really interesting club. So it's USL 2. You may be familiar with the USL. The USL is kind of looked at right now as a step below the MLS, but USL is changing its format to promotion relegation, and right. Their idea is to try and compete with the MLS. So to have two first divisions is what their premise is going to try and be. So it's USL 2. It's we're really a community-based club. It's fan-owned, so they have a 50+1 rule like they do in Germany here. So it's really about the community, and it's actually more about building a club for the community than it is anything that exists on the pitch. Right. And my job is to try and maybe put some alignment together and try and put a plan together and try and help us achieve that, what they've done off the pitch, on the pitch. So yeah, we've played at the famous Kezar Stadium where the San Francisco 49ers used to play. We great crowds for I think it's step 4 of the pyramid here, so it's pretty far down, but upwards of 2,000, 3,000 people in the stadium, which is really
Amazing.
fun.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I think as well as that, I mean, I'm just trying to understand a little bit the structure in the USA for football. Is it similar to the darts in the UK, where you've got the BDO and the PDC, and they can't really intermeet with each other, if that makes sense? Is that a good way of describing what the league structure is like in the USA?
It might be. I wish I was more familiar with the darts, but we don't get so much of it out here. You can, so there is definitely movement between rosters. MLS teams can sign USL players, but they are completely separate entities.
Yeah.
USL, I mean, MLS, the latest franchise for the MLS, I think, was San Diego. I think they bought it for $750 million. And that's just the opportunity to play in the MLS. So huge money going into the MLS. USL is the best way to describe it. It's so I'll give you an example in California. Oakland playing the USL, Sacramento playing the USL. It's more of the smaller town communities that are competing. There are some big cities in it, but it's more. It feels a lot more non-league startup than the MLS, which is really the Premier League.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
makes sense.
You sort of mentioned just for our 5 listeners at home, the 51 split in Germany. Can you just explain what that kind of means?
Yeah. So essentially, what it means is that there can never be one controlling owner. So obviously what we have with Norfolk Holdings, Norwich and Mark Atanasio is we have a majority shareholder that essentially will be making decisions on behalf of the club. They'll delegate a lot of those decisions. With San Francisco FC, if a board member, all the members of the club, everyone gets a chance to vote for who that board member is. Everyone has an opportunity to attend board meetings, AGMs, and bring their ideas forward, and anyone has the opportunity to also put themselves forward to be on the board and to get voted on. So it's really about the club just making sure that the club remains and continues to exist. And I think there's a lot of pride in knowing that that's the model, and that they are the oldest community-owned club in the United States of America.
Oh, that's amazing. And we because me and Jez have a very the podcast is, since you were on it, obviously has evolved and stuff. We've been doing different projects within the Beyond the Barclay sphere, but we've also been concentrating on like grassroots teams in the UK, like Clapton FC, Clapton Community Football Club, I should say, sorry, and a few other things. And it's we just were at Hitchin Town last weekend. We were there
Saturday just gone.
Yeah, it was amazing. And so it's something that me and Jez we're quite keen on promoting. So, you know, obviously going on today's, I wasn't aware that was kind of the sort of premise behind. It's what is it? SFCFC, SFCFC. It's like a tongue twister, but yeah, I mean that's amazing. It's really good to hear, and I hope that long may that sort of relationship with your community continue, because it's so important to have that relationship with your community. And grassroots isn't a word I kind of use in yours in this instance, but it's along that kind of line, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely is, and the impact that it's had on the community in San Francisco is really big. You see jerseys all over the city, which is incredible. But it's the only club currently that's in the city, so it's kind of that support that, or go support someone in the MLS, or go across to Oakland and support there. And people have pride in their city and want to watch football in their city, and so it's been awesome. And just to check them out, they do an incredible job on marketing. Obviously, we've got lots of volunteers and supporters and people who do great graphic design and make kits. I think the biggest revenue stream for this club is the kit sales, because they sell kits nationally, but not only nationally, globally, just because they make really cool kit ideas. And they've got a really cool sponsor, which is the municipal transport agency, the Muni, which is our bus line in San Francisco. So it's, again, bringing it back to community and community feel. So yeah, some really cool kits. You should check them out.
As we know someone that works for the club now, the top dog, we can probably get sent some. So yeah, thanks for that, Nick.
Mrs.
Doubtfire was San Francisco, wasn't it?
Yes.
I actually live not far, maybe 6 or 7 blocks from Mrs. Doubtfire's house.
Amazing.
or at least the kids' house.
And The Rock. And that was. Are we just going to list off films, Jez?
Yeah, let's do it. I think before we go down that rabbit hole, let's talk a little bit about your day-to-day then, Nick. So what does a day-to-day look like for you, and what are your key responsibilities?
Yeah, so I obviously do quite a few things. Like we talked about San Francisco City FC being what it is. That's a role that takes up some time. So within that role, it's working with the technical staff and aligning them. It's communicating back to the ownership group, which is the fans, but also the board, making sure that we have a plan. It's connecting with people around us, because the way that our league works, our league falls into the summer season.
Okay.
So we're able to recruit athletes out of college to come play for us if that's in their development pathway. So last year we took some players from Stanford and some other universities that are close to us to kind of support the development pathway for professional players as well. So it's connecting with those people, trying to build the best possible squad that we can build. We're under some restrictions within our league. There are some clubs that house players, and it's almost like giving players a season to come play for them. We don't do that. So we're looking at players within our community who are here. So it's then going and talking to them and explaining what we can offer them as part of their journey. But then also I still run a company. I'm still CEO of a company, so I still have to run that. And then I'm still a technical director for an academy. And I've just stopped coaching as a head coach, but I'm assistant coaching with currently our under 15 girls team, which is probably the funnest part of my week. So yeah, lots and lots going on for me.
No, that's really good. I think with all that, it must be such a balancing act. But what would you say is the most important part of that role with San Francisco? What I guess, what is your objective this season to implement something within that football club?
Yeah, so the role is new for San Francisco City FC. So for me, it's about alignment and bringing the technical staff on a journey with me. So removing a lot of the roadblocks and frustrations that they might have, and then bringing them a little bit closer to the club. I think the club has so much drive in it to bring out the club and give people awareness of the club and bring the club into people's lives. Sometimes the technical side almost feels like a sideshow. And what we have to do is bring that technical side closer to the club, align things, create an identity, and then build on that and see where that goes, and then try and win. So we have to come up with a plan to try and win, because otherwise, why are we doing it?
Exactly. And I don't think we are talking about it later on, so I'm going to ask this question, but we recently had Stuart Webber on the podcast, which was amazing for me, for myself and Morgan to speak to Norwich's first ever sporting director. So perhaps you can just, in your professional opinion, I guess, talk to us a little about the role that Stuart did at Norwich City Football Club and how the club is now compared to what it was when he stepped through the door.
Yeah, and Stuart is also an integral member of the Association of Sporting Directors, which I mentioned earlier. And he's now out in Japan getting opportunities to go do work like that is incredible, and he's earned every last drop of it. I think when you look at the role that he played, and we'll talk about the role of sporting director as we get through kind of what's happening at Norwich right now, but when you look at the role he played in terms of being part of the picture and being very relevant, sometimes to take pressure off, sometimes to bring the fans in. I remember, obviously I was in the US by that time, but I remember going back to watch games in the Daniel Farke era and watching Todd Cantwell completely miss a pass, like shank a pass, a 40-yard pass, and people behind me saying, "Don't worry, Todd, head up." And I was like, hang on a minute. No, like that would never happen back in the day. It was always, "Oh, come on, what are you doing?" So I think you can really bring culture, and Daniel Farke has a lot to do with that. But I also think Stuart Webber was the perfect complementary for Daniel Farke, who was rigid and stuck in his system and stubborn. And Webber was transparent and out there and bright and full of energy. And yeah, they were an excellent duo.
Yeah. I actually think the Atanasio situation happened 5 years too late, because I think had it happened during the Webber era, he then would have had the funds to compete in the Premier League, and we all saw what he did in the Championship twice with obviously Farke's involvement as well. But I do think had he had that kind of budget back then, I think we would be having a very different conversation now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, he did say on that, again, sorry to plug that podcast, but he did mention, the changing of the culture that he brought with him, behind the scenes. And he sort of mentioned that, that some staff weren't there wasn't a kind of like, there was an almost like an us and them mentality between, you know, some of the ground staff and not being able to speak to, say, Delia on a daily basis or whatever. And he was like, well, why? Like, everyone's in the same boat, right? We're all pulling together. Let's sort of furnish that mentality. And I think that spread out onto the terraces, and it's what got us over the line twice, I think. I mean, the second time obviously was different because there was no people in the crowd, but it was I think it was a cultural shift that you sort of mentioned there, Nick, that we haven't seen at Norwich now since Stuart left. I mean, let's face it, like, you know, everyone makes mistakes in life. That's just the way things are. But you know, Stuart made a few, but yeah, without him, there, you know, what would have Norwich done? Where would we have gone after Jez Moxey and you know, and Alex Neil? So I think it's easy to say, are you looking back with yellow and green glasses? But without that Webber Farke combination, I don't know where we'd be now. I mean, maybe not in. I know we're not in the best position right now, but it could be worse.
Oh, undoubtedly. And you just have to look at the history of Norwich City to know that things can always get a little bit worse. For me, it was authenticity was Stuart Webber's biggest weapon, and he used it to create a hard reset at Norwich in a very different way than we've seen kind of a reset coming into this season, by engaging people and bringing people along for the journey. And now we're not getting that, and that, you know, that comes down to personalities and plan. But what a journey it was, and kind of football fans live for seasons like that, and we definitely got one of them. And the second one was tough; it was behind closed doors, but we definitely got one of them.
That was my favourite every season. My favourite every season supporting Norwich City Football Club was that season. That first, yeah.
Because it all started with my photo at the Walks, where I did I dropped a gurn on Daniel Farke in the crowd, and my mate took a picture of it because we did this stupid thing. We'd like, you know, get a funny photo of Daniel Farke. So I was like, okay, cool. I did, and then a few days later on the Pink and New EDP, my friend was like scrolling through the photos of the pre-match friendly, the pre-season friendly. And he's like, oh, you should go to the last photo. And there's this picture of the EDP had taken of me doing that stupid face from obviously from a long distance as part of the photo pack. Anyway, it gets worse. That photo is then transposed onto a physical copy of the EDP on the back page saying Farke feels transfer pressure is eased. And there's this picture of me gurning with Daniel Farke on the back of this EDP, like a massive blown up photo.
I knew I knew from somewhere.
And it all started at the Walks. But I mean, what you said there, Nick, I think is really interesting. And I asked you the question earlier about your journey to where you are now. It's really important, I think, to highlight, you know, that you've worked your way through to where you've got to. And the thing that struck me when we met up with Webber is he was the same. He didn't just go from being a data analyst, and we'll get onto this in a second, to a sporting director. There was an arc. There was a massive arc for him. And he started out at Wrexham looking after the ground, looking after the grass, and, you know, worked his way to where he was, to where he got with Norwich. And you're quite right. He's earned his stripes to be where he's at now. And I think your journey is almost as similar in a way that you've worked hard, you've worked on a trajectory to kind of get to that sporting director role. And I think that's what makes a successful sporting director, is having that, almost working from a grassroots perspective up.
No, I agree. I think you can look back on what you've done with gratitude. As we talked about earlier, sometimes it can be frustration. You feel like you should be in the top job, or you should be getting roles or responsibilities before maybe you're ready. But like Stuart, working in the academy at Liverpool or doing the grass at Wrexham, obviously building his way up and having lots of ambition to get there. He had a lot to look back into. So yeah, I'm convinced that that's helped him along his journey, and I'm probably sure in his role now in Japan that he's looking back on his time at Norwich and thinking, okay, got to learn from that mistake, or this worked really well at this club, but why is it not working at this club? So yeah, I for that reason, that's why I'm sure he'll be a success.
Yeah, definitely. Morgan?
So I guess, given your position stateside, what do you think of the growing American influence in the UK on football, and where do you see it going in the next few years?
Well, everyone wants to be an owner, it seems. So there's obviously going to be more and more of that with the Americans coming over and looking at the investment in football. Obviously, we've got Disney FC. I know we don't want to bring up that game, but that's obviously rife here in America, and people are trying to get into the game. They're seeing it through their children, and they're falling in love with it. And we're now starting to see professional women's team here, the MLS here. USL is now going promotion relegation to try and compete. You've got the World Cup coming here in the summer. You've got the Olympics that's going to be here in Los Angeles. Soon after that, the Women's World Cup will be here. So the game is exploding and continuing to explode here. So obviously there's England especially is still, in my opinion, the place to be and the place to go for football in terms of something that kind of leans over sport and shadows sport and is just a hotbed of cultural football where people just live, breathe, talk. That doesn't exist here. That's not. It exists in niche circles, and when you find them, people are attracted to them. But it's certainly not the same. So I can see more and more Americans getting more and more interested in the game, and then looking over at what's going on in the UK and going, that's really interesting. That could lead to more ownership opportunities. It could lead to more sales. It could lead to more American coaches, more American players. But yeah, it's definitely exploding here. I've like I said, I've been here quite a long time, and I've seen the kind of slow rise, and now I'm starting to see the explosion.
Yeah, I mean, it's something in the UK that if both of you cast your minds back to when Swansea were in the Premier League and they had, I have to remember to say it the right way, Bob Bradley, and yeah, I know, because I was the Soccer AM piss take of it, Brad Bobley Soccer Schools, and I think that for me is all the media, how they were with Bob Bradley, it was quite unfair in a way, and I think that that sort of like classic English football mentality about well, you've got your American sports and we've got football here, and that's how we like it. And from my perspective, things are changing. We can clearly see that. Norwich City is a prime example of which, and we'll go on to that bit in a second. But I think that there's less ridicule now in the British media when it comes to American owners or American coaches or American players than there perhaps was, say, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I mean, what do you think to that sort of like opinion?
I think your opinion and your feeling around it is probably true for most people. San Diego FC, I mentioned them earlier, 750 million for a franchise. They've bought in Right to Dream. Obviously, we know Right to Dream because of Norgeland, and obviously we had Johannes Aftorup here. A huge academy that's bordering 2 different countries. They have a school, so the kids who join the academy join a residential. They're in the club, like Barcelona. So it's almost, yes, England has it, and the history is there, and the culture is there. But Americans don't like sitting behind too long, and when they get hold of something, they want to make it bigger and better. And that's what we're starting to get a glimpse into now. There's still time for it to pay off. And I think that the national team is going to have to do something in the World Cup to really ignite things here, and to probably gain the respect of global football. But it's happening. It's happening, and it's happening fast.
Yeah, and it's kind of like an interesting, it's sort of an interesting perspective that the US game, like, I think, you know, in terms of the lower leagues, and when I talk about lower leagues, I mean League One and League Two and sort of subsequent what we've known as conference clubs. Do you think that I mean, look at Wrexham, they're a prime example of that. Do you think that's going to be something that's going to be more and more featured, maybe, or not featured is the wrong word, but do you think that's sort of that mentality is something that's going to be more and more prevalent?
Well, that's the fun ride, right? And obviously the whole Disney FC thing gives it a spark and lets people into that. And we've had back-to-back promotions in Norwich. We know what it's like to go on journeys like that. It's enthralling, and you feel so connected to what you're doing. And it becomes something you get obsessed with, becomes a drug for people. And so, yeah, and League One, League Two are great ownership opportunities for investors or owners who want to come in. The Championship's a different story, and I'm learning more and more about that and how difficult that can be. And I would say probably if you asked Ryan Reynolds right now, he'd probably say, yeah, it's a little bit tougher in the Championship in terms of the budget and what's possible, but also, you know, when they're spending 8 million on players, multiple players, and not being successful, that's when it gets a little bit tough. But yeah, League One, League Two, great ownership opportunities, great stories. I think that probably compares a lot with the USL and hopefully the promotion relegation method that they're going down. I think they've probably taken a leaf out of that book and said, hey, this is really exciting for people to get into when you have those stories and you can build those narratives and bring people along in the community on that journey.
Definitely.
I mean, the only thing that, sorry, Jez, the only thing I would say is, in your opinion, do you think that, because obviously the Chinese Super League, that however many years ago that was now, that sort of came out of nowhere, and everyone was concerned that was going to take away from the Premier League and so on and so forth. Do you think there's an opportunity for that to happen in the States? Do you think that people listening to this, are they worried? Do you think that they have a right to be worried that the Premier League might, and the Championship and so on, might not have that sort of strength in the future?
I mean, we'll see. I think the American audience is what people are vying for here, less so the European audience. Because right now the American audience is locked into the Premier League, is locked in, as I'm sure a lot of Asia are, locked into the Champions League, locked into stories that are getting documentaries and bringing people along on the ride. It's when people then start to look into their cities and their communities and their clubs and say, okay, well, what's happening for me? What's happening where I am?
Yeah.
That's when we might start to see something resemble a little bit more of what we can see in England at lower league level.
So, Jez, you're on mute.
Yes. So, moving on to question 5. So, what is your take on Mark Atanasio's takeover of NCFC so far? And in your opinion, do you see him becoming more hands-on, or will it be left to his company to govern?
Well, that's going to be the fascinating thing, because for me, understanding an ownership group, every interview that I've heard from him so far has been very much, hey, Ben's in charge of the football, or we have a think tank group in Norfolk Holdings that are going to be discussing these issues, but the people at the club are running the club. I wonder for how long that continues, because I think at some point, and Mark's also talked a lot about how he's done it in baseball, and I think there are similarities and compatibilities that work across sports that he can bring expertise in. It's just how much is he going to become that person, that owner that really wants to connect. I'm sure he's on the phone a lot with Ben Knapper, but and maybe it is behind the scenes Mark Atanasio is pulling the strings, and maybe he is telling Ben, don't go out into the media, or he is telling Ben, hey, you should look at this market because our data team are saying that you need to go over to look into Bulgaria or Poland or wherever it is. It's possible. Maybe he is seeping into the team there, but there's nothing that I wouldn't believe it if someone told me that. For me, it feels like he's he's allowing the club to run. He's got an idea and an ambition, but and maybe he's giving it time, given that he's not a football expert. But at some point, I think he's probably going to turn on that.
I think he needs to. I think. Well, for me, sorry,
okay.
Morgan. All I was going to say is he ain't putting all this money in just for it to go to shit. Basically, he's going to want to get a return for his investment. So there's going to be a point. Well, I hope there's going to be a point where if it doesn't turn, because at the moment we're only seeing a downward trajectory, that he has to come. There's no sort of like, oh, he's going to come. He will have to. Like, either that or I think Morgan, you sort of, you summed it up perfectly. I think recently you sort of said, boots on the ground. He needs to be in there. He needs to be in that club for a month or two to see every single aspect of that football club and go, well, hang on, should we be building this fan zone? Because it's going to piss off all those people that are sitting in the river and that have sat there for 20 years. Should we be investing in this part of the ground? Because actually, if we do it over there, where that stand's been there dormant for, not dormant, but you know what I mean, that stand's not been touched for 20, 25 years, and you've got all these shitty little offices downstairs that are doing nothing. Can we redevelop that instead? So that's the point I'm getting at. And sorry for being so passionate about that in the way I've delivered it. Is that 100% he needs to come over.
Don't apologise. Don't apologise for your passion. I mean, my perspective, I don't know if it's, and you probably, Nick, you're probably better placed to answer this than anyone. Is there much difference between PR across let's call it soccer in the US and baseball and that kind of thing, or is PR more or less the same across most sports in the States?
It's really difficult for me to judge. I think every club is slightly unique, which is probably what you see in football. For me, with Mark Atanasio, you've got, for someone who works in finance and with hedge funds, he'll understand what patience means, but he'll also understand what a good business looks like, and where to get success from that. And he's the one who's thrown his money into it, and he's not going to treat it as a lottery ticket. He works in finance. He's not silly. He's going to see this as an investment opportunity. He's going to need Norwich to get back to the Premier League and try and sustain themselves in order for him to really benefit from this. And even then, he's only benefiting if he gets a sale. So there's a reason he's here. And for how long he's going to will he let Norwich just be run down into the ground, fall into league? No. Will he have the patience to say, hey, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, and let's not, make drastic changes that we don't, he's probably going to look at it with a fine tooth comb. I would imagine he's got a lot of people at the club that are reporting back to him, not just Ben Knapper on the technical side. So we'll include Zoe Webber with that. And maybe some of what you've seen with the movement of the fans and the fan zone, and, an absolute disaster in terms of the way it was put across and communicated, and really a lack of understanding. But if Mark Atanasio is behind the scenes saying, you need to get me 15% more revenue, this is crazy. You've got all these fans coming in. We're not emptying their pockets. If you go to a game in the US, I'll go to the game with my kids, and it's like I'm spending more at the game than I am on the tickets times many, because there's so many experiences, things are thrown in your face. You've got food trucks everywhere. There's people selling candy floss. There's people selling popcorn. There's people saying, hey, come do this, buy this raffle, get into this community organization, do this, do that. It's endless. And that's the fan experience. It's what people are used to. So he will be patient and aware enough to know that it doesn't necessarily look like that in England, but he'll also be impatient enough to say, well, what are we doing to try and bridge the gap? And I think that's probably what we saw. And maybe we see a stall on that now, or maybe we see, hey, we've played our hand. We've got to go all in now, and kind of keep. What we're going to see is constant efforts like this to try and improve the match day experience. But essentially, what that means is get more money into the club.
Yeah,
but without this becoming like a financial business development chat, and I'm going to sound cold, and I'm going to get pelters probably for this, but that's where we are in football, right? That's where we are in the Championship, and especially a club with the aspirations of wanting to be in the Premier League again. I said this the other day on the Pinkin Forum. I feel like a lot of fans wanted Delia gone and they wanted a rich owner, right? A rich owner that can make stuff happen. And now they've got a rich owner. And now that they want rich owner to give them a bag of Wotsits and look after their dog. And I'm like, well, that's those times of they're over now. When Jez and me did the special Delia leaving special last year, little did we know how much things would change. And that's what's happening. It's a different journey now. And I think that I'm not saying people can't be up in arms about it, because rightly it wasn't handled well. It wasn't timed well. It went out at the wrong time. It's why I asked you a question about the PR side of stuff. But this is where we find ourselves. If people think that it's going to change and go away, it's not going to happen.
No, definitely. I mean, I repress for time here, so I don't know if you just want to move on to the next one, because it's quite a juicy one, Morgan.
Okay, yeah, sure. In your opinion, how do you feel Ben Knapper's tenure is going? I know that comparing SFC FC to NCFC is probably a little bit too grand, but would there be anything from your experience you would have changed in his time so far?
Yeah, I would, and I wouldn't lean on my experience as a sporting director, because I don't have much of that. So it's I'm not really in a position to judge Ben Knapper from a professional perspective. But
can I be blunt, Nick?
Yeah, I'll try and be blunt.
No, I'm going to be blunt. Neither's he. He's only been in the job a year and a half, and he hasn't done the job before. So I think arguably you've had I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I think you've had a very rich and varied career in soccer, in football, and I think you should be tremendously proud of what you've done. And I know we're probably going to have a different route here, but I think So don't feel like you're digging him out, because you're not.
So the thing for me, I think confusion is a lot of what people are talking about in terms of who are we, what are we trying to be, what are we trying to do, because we've gone from a self-funded, which I still think that's pretty far-fetched, but we were a self-funded club. We definitely saw that in the Premier League in that year under Daniel Farke, the first one. But we don't really know who we want to be. And I think Ben's done a really incredible job in terms of moving players on, bringing players in. Maybe it's the wrong personnel, but he was able to go source these players, find these players. Each of them came with a narrative. Each of them came with a story. Each of them probably very, very different deals that he had to get over the line. And he's obviously getting this input from his head of recruitment. He's not watching 1,000 matches a week to try and study these players. He's getting this information. So he's landing players that are bringing to him that are part of the model. I think the confusion about who we're trying to be is we can't really see that from the squad. And no one's come out and told us Jurasek needs 9 months. Cernak is going to be a 3-year plan. And that kind of goes back to the Atanasio talk, because I felt like that we did have that with him. He did come out and say, we want to get Gabe Forsyth in the team. And everyone kind of accepted it, because we were like, we want to bring academy players through. That's who we want to be. We've got this coach who's done it at Norwich and has had success bringing through players. And we want to be an academy-based club, and we want to get there. But we also now have the money, and we can add some talent into that and maybe bring some stars in or some experience or whatever we're looking for. And we just don't know what this team is going to be yet or look like, because we just haven't heard it from anyone. So for me, and then you add on to that his choice of manager, which is Liam Manning, who also keeps his cards close to his chest. And I've heard people in the media say that he's a very different person off the camera. And it's like, okay, so we've got Ben Knapper who keeps his cards close to his chest. We've got Liam Manning who keeps his cards close to his chest. The team's not performing or succeeding. We've got lots of young players who are struggling in this environment. The fans are looking around saying, obviously they've been displaced and there's been upset around the whole PR disaster that's existed. Everyone's looking around going, someone please give us some clarity. And there just isn't that. We don't know where the values lie, because we don't know enough about Mark Atanasio and the way he's going to run things. What are his values? What does he look for? What is he in terms of an owner? And then I think the job of the sporting director is to try to marry that relationship between who the club is and what the owner wants it to be, and then form alignment with his staff. And to me, it's just gone quiet. And maybe this is going back to the Stuart Webber. There's enough people in the club that are like, hey, Ben, keep your head down. Don't go doing anything silly here. We might end up with some bed sheets outside the City stand. So I think there's just a lot of confusion around who we are, what we want to be. And it might be really obvious. We just can't see it from the football. So I'd say he struggled with that this season. I think there was a better job of it last season with his choice of manager and squad selection, and probably what he was telling Atanasio Torup. So there's been a turn. But with Torup, I think it's not necessarily obvious because nothing's come out, but it looks pretty obvious that the players turned, and that the dressing room wasn't going to uphold another season of Torup. So even with a reset, it was always going to be difficult. A reset of players, I mean. So I get why he had to do that. And his choice of bringing in someone who's tried and trusted in the division, someone who's up and coming from the area. Like we talk about experience, someone who's been at Lommel, someone who's been at City Group, someone who's been at MK Dons and Bristol City, like really wide, varied experience in the game to understand it. Feels like a good choice on paper. But bringing him a team that he was comfortable with, I would love to know from Liam Manning how comfortable he is with this group and the squad that's been assembled. But obviously nothing will ever be said about, he's never going to come out and say, yeah, I didn't really want that player or didn't really need that player. And maybe it is just injuries, and maybe it is just, once he gets closer to his starting 11. I mean, what we saw at the beginning with Diallo, essentially we were playing a back three with Diallo playing as a wing back, and then we'd invert him, put him closer to the 9 as Crescencio or Cordoba went forward. And we had kind of a pattern, and it was like, okay, this is kind of what it's going to look like. I kind of get this. And then we've had to go back to basics a little bit because of injuries and personnel and discomfort from the fans. And I think Knapper can really help there and just say, yeah, look, there's been injuries. We've tried it this way. We've had to go back to basics. We're looking to bring the squad back. We've still got a plan in our heads about how we want to attack this and how we want to create a journey for these players and their individual profiles, and where we're looking to go, not only with sales, but also building a team for the future. I mean, you've seen at Spurs, they've bought a lot of young players, and they've said, hey, listen, be patient. This is a squad for year 3. This is a squad for year 2. And even though they've changed their manager, there's still that a very different manager going from Ange Postecoglou to Thomas Frank. That's a very different style of manager, but they haven't lost their identity and their journey of who they are. They've stuck with it. With us, I think there's not enough communication around who we are. So that's where I would say he's fallen.
The comms, but I think you're right. But it's not just it's comms throughout the club, and I think that obviously when you had Webber, you had a focal point, and he might run his mouth off and say things he shouldn't have from time to time, or they got misconstrued. But at least there was, like you said, a pinhead. And you could go, right, we'll put that, and that's where we're going. At the moment, like you said, I feel like we're flapping around, and we're kind of we don't know what we're doing. There's a part of me deep down that's going, please, Atanasio, come and do something, please, because we need some kind of like a different structure behind the scenes, or some kind of better corporate communication. I don't know, but that's what my hope is. Sorry, Jez, you've got your pen up.
I've got my pen up because I'm very conscious that Nick's only got 2 minutes and he's got another meeting. So just before we finish, Nick, thanks first and foremost for coming on. It's been brilliant. Hearing about you, but I think the discussion around it has been good as well. So is there anything else you want to plug before we finish?
Yeah, go check out SF City FC. We've got a good presence on social media. So go find them. Nothing else to plug, but I look forward to continuing to watch your channel. So
thank you.
Keep plugging your stuff.
Brilliant. Okay. Look, thanks everyone else for listening, and look forward to speaking to everyone soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.